Everybody with Angela Williamson is made possible by Fireheart Pictures and viewers like you. Thank you. 99% of all children abducted by a stranger are murdered within the first 24 hours, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Tonight, we'll meet the brave woman who is the 1% and learn how she's turned this traumatic experience into a personal mission to help others suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm so happy you're joining us for this powerful episode.
From Los Angeles, this is KLCS PBS. Welcome to Everybody with Angela Williamson, an innovation, arts, education, and public affairs program. Everybody with Angela Williamson is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you. And now your host, Dr. Angela Williamson.
Gina M. Garcia is here to talk about her film, Untold, This Is My Story, which has been all over the film festival circuit, except for there's been a change, right?
Yes, it's actually on Amazon Prime and a lot of the other streaming networks.
And it was really important for you to tell this story. Why? Let's go back to the beginning, Gina.
Well, as I'm a survivor of a stranger abduction, I dealt with childhood sexual abuse, and I was an 8-year-old kid abducted out of the Fashion Square Mall in Orlando, Florida. During my journey of, I had arrested development. I survived, but I carried this dark passenger with me, and for a really long time, and it affected all my relationships with my family, my relationships with my friends, partners. So as I got older, I didn't want the person that took me to still own me as an adult.
And so through your own personal journey to go through, I mean, there was 2 incidents that happened to you before you even turned 18. So before you even move forward, you had to go backwards. How difficult is that for people to do that? Because you've been talking all over to a lot of people who have post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's got to be so difficult to go backwards to the dark days to try to move forward.
If you can't go backwards and deal with your past, there is no future. There's no choice. There is absolutely no choice. You have to go through it. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. It will catch up to you, and when it catches up to you, it's devastating. So for myself, I knew that if I wanted to proceed and live a healthy, and when I say healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically healthy life, I had to deal with my crap.
And I love this outlook that you have, but it's been really hard for people. I mean, now we talk about it, but years when we were growing up, these were things that were buried in the families, and still even we see this today. How do we change that as a society? Because like you said, if you don't go backwards, you can't move forward, and you did it. And it was a tough journey for you. I mean, your film was so remarkable. We watched that journey, but you had to start from somewhere, and that was just so tough. How do people start?
Well, first of all, because a lot of people go, I can't afford like mental health therapy. There's ways of, I first started like listening to Wayne Dwyer, and I was listening to podcasts. I listened to other people's journeys. I'm fortunate enough to be a veteran. And so when I got to the edge, I dove into therapy at the Orlando VA in Florida. And my ego, because I believe that a lot of people that go through traumas, and especially sexual trauma at early ages, there's a few things that can happen. They either turn into drugs, there's alcoholism, there's suicide, there's food addictions, which I fall under that as far as yo-yoing with weight and stuff like that, or you have the Oprah effect. And so me with the Oprah effect is that You do everything possible to overachieve so nobody knows your dirty secret. And if you look at these, like, there's so many successful women out there that have a similar history. Not everyone's abducted by a stranger, but there's, you know, molestation, there's rape, there's all kinds of traumas, and the last thing you want is for people to see a dirty secret. And because people, in my mind, I was like, if people find out about this, they're gonna see me in a certain way and in a negative light, like it's my fault and all this other stuff. So I mentally did everything to succeed, every possible thing to succeed. I graduated top of my class in the military. I was at NATO. I worked at Supreme Allied Command Atlantic, you know, and so that's the thing. I was student council president. I you know, sports. I did everything, and no matter what I did, it didn't matter. There was still this darkness. I had darkness in me, and I thought I was sometimes the life of the party and all that, but my abductor stayed with me, and it affected like how I dealt with things and dealt with people and my safety things, and I was always cautious about every single thing, and I believe you have to be cautious, but I wasn't living. I actually celebrate 2 birthdays, the day I was born and the day I jumped out of a car, because I'm not supposed to be here. Statistically, I am not supposed to be here. And I made a choice to jump out of a car half naked after being brutally raped at knife point. And I have to live. I have to live for those children that never got out of that car.
And you said, I have to live for those children who never get out of that car. Does that become like a big pressure for you, or does that become a relief for you because now you're focusing on something different, something bigger than who you are as Gina M. Garcia?
So I guess my metaphor of getting out of the car is, like, for me, it was literally out of a car. For a lot of people, it's getting out of your head. So if I could show people that I can go from serial killer, raped, jumping out of a car, and turn out to be just even a little okay, that other people can. So I say get out of the car. I say it to my friends when they're in a funky place and they're caught up in their head and the trauma. And it could be a simple trauma. It could be someone that just, we could say with cars and just pulled out in front of them. And I'm like, don't stay in that place. Because if you stay in that place of negativity, that person that just pulled you off, they win today. And if you could get into your head and stay right and positive, you're the winner. The abusers are no longer the winner. The rapists aren't the winner. And that's kind of my mentality of where I live today, is like, I win every day. My abductor doesn't win anymore.
And you talk about winning and how that impacts not only your life, but the lives of people around you. And one of the things that, now we are saying it's okay to talk about this among families. But, when we were growing up, things like this, we just didn't discuss bad things that happened. We just buried it and then continued to move forward. How do you think that impacts families in the long run? Because you talked about the relationships, and family relationship is important to all of us, but something that traumatic can change the family relationship forever.
Absolutely. It messed up the complete dynamics of my family. My brother and I, we didn't speak for 8 years when I was making my film. My sister, I haven't talked to her since 2007. My mom, we have a great relationship, and my mom was like, you and your brother have to fix this. And the interesting thing about fixing it, my brother actually watched my movie. He watched the original version, which was Untold. I wasn't comfortable with it, and so he watched it, and he's like, I know your story. If anybody, he knows my story. He goes, but that's not you. And I was like, what do you mean it's not me? It's me. There's an actor playing me, but he's like, you're not that victim anymore. You're not a victim anymore. And so with that, and this was like, right at the beginning of COVID, because I shelved my film. I wasn't comfortable. I was like, there's something missing. And I had my brother, he watched it and he goes, you can change the way the world will see you. And you're fortunate enough because you get to change it in the film that you already did. And I went in, I re-edited my film, the film that you actually watched, and people don't leave going, oh my God, she's a victim.
No.
The first version, I wasn't healed enough. I might have shot it, but it took from shooting that film to COVID to go, okay, I'm no longer a victim. I made a film, and my brother and my mom going, hey, you guys got to fix this. And so when I say family journey and how do you fix things?
Yes.
My mom made us talk. My mom made us talk, because we could have gone another 20 years. We could have gone till I'm 6 feet in the ground and never speak. But you have to do the hard stuff sometimes, and you have to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, let's fix this. Vulnerability is everything. And people are so afraid to be vulnerable, but vulnerable is opening up, and you can grow so much by vulnerability. So my family dynamics now, even though me and my sister don't talk, and that's her issue, I love her, and I don't have any blame. If you watch my film, a lot of people want to blame my sister. It's not her fault. The only person's fault it is my abductor's fault. And it took us a long time. It took us a long time to heal as a family, and now my brother's my best friend. My mom, I took her to senior prom, she's 84 years old, I took her to senior prom. Those are the things you have to choose to start talking. My film is Untold, and now that it's out, it will never be untold.
And also too, the family dynamics that you have in that movie, and I didn't know that you had recut the movie, because in the movie that I watched, you truly are a person that is not a victim anymore. You're working through it. But even in watching those family dynamics, like watching you with your brother and your mom in the kitchen and things, you could see that strong relationship and love there. And even as you're trying to work through talking that hurt and pain with your sister, you can see that. So obviously we're watching you grow as you tell this story. And you said, yes, you do have to be vulnerable as part of this, but how much of you opening up yourself has touched others? And so I would love to hear your brother gave you this valuable feedback, but others as well, because what you're doing is you're now giving us permission to talk about deep, dark secrets to help us move forward.
Well, I think with talking about it and getting it out there and family dynamics, it's something that if what we said earlier, if you want to move, you have to go backwards to move forward. And that was kind of my mission in all of this. It was, I showed my family implode. I showed an implosion of a family. And a lot of times we talk about the traumas, we talk about the assailants, the abusers, that part. We forget that there's something that happens after that moment. We forget, and it's brutal. We could talk about, the women's Olympic team and so, gymnastics.
Yes.
Everyone's talking about the assault, but what's that long-term effect? How many women actually stopped being gymnasts? How many women stopped going to school or college, or they stopped being them because of that single moment? And that's why for me, I celebrate 2 days, because I have to celebrate the fact that I'm here and not be mid-October crying. And I did that for a lot of years, and I couldn't even figure it out. I was just I don't understand why every fall I get sad.
Because you buried it so deep, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, what I love what you did in your film is you were able to tell this story in such an elegant way of how triggers impact us. And I wanted to talk about that because it was that trigger that led you to starting to realize what you had buried, but then the help that you started doing, not only with your personal counselor, but with group therapy. I think that's really important because it's all a part of the process, and the decisions that you made as a director to shoot that. I'd love to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So you hang out through the segment break and come back.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Come back as we talk with Gina Garcia and more about her film, Untold, This Is My Story, which she produced and directed.
Welcome to America's Test Kitchen at home.
At home.
At home.
At home.
At home.
This year, we're bringing it all back home
Ta-da!
with great new recipes,
It's cheese time.
I hated tuna fish when I was a kid.
ingredients, and gear,
Here's mud in your eye.
and your favorite test cooks.
Today, I want to talk about my tank.
Cooking in their own kitchens. America's Test Kitchen at home.
It's really good.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back. Dad! You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Hey, what are you looking for?
A book on Saturn. I have to do a project for Miss Jones' class.
Wow. That's so cool. You're so grown up.
Thank you.
So where are your parents?
Here with my sister. Right over there.
Oh, what about your parents?
Well, my mom went to go pay a bill at Sears, and we have to meet her at Orange Julius by 8:30.
Okay. So you want some help with your project?
I kind of have to do it by myself because, I'm a big kid.
Welcome back. I'm continuing my conversation with Gina M. Garcia. Gina, in that clip that we watched where you were in the bookstore, surrounded by books because your dad had made you a promise, in this scene, you really take the myth out of how a child gets abducted by a stranger. So tell me a little bit about that myth and what we think that happens, but what really happens.
So for myself, my motivation and when I was in the bookstore is I wanted a good grade. It's kind of the rosebud thing for me.
Yes.
I was going to get a bicycle, and I wanted that good grade. If I got a good grade in Mrs. Jones' class on Saturn, I was going to get a new bicycle, banana seat Schwinn. I'm dating myself completely right now. But the thing was, the person that came up to me heard what I was looking for, and he manipulated a child. He said he could help me. Oh, I have books, I have magazines. I was like, okay. And then when he said I have them in my car, I was just like, well, let me go tell my sister. Oh, I'm with security. He had a badge. He had a badge. He showed me a badge, and I was like, okay, because we're taught like security, the police officers, those are the good people. And this was a long time ago. We're talking 40 years ago. Yes. But I went willingly. I went through a mall. I went through the Sears and Roebucks where my mom was paying a bill. I could have passed her. I wanted to get that good grade. I wanted to do it by myself. And, we walked out of the mall. We got to his car. It wasn't a white van that everyone thinks they're getting thrown into a van. And when we got there, he just pushed me in the car. It was that simple. It was an adult manipulating a child.
And how do we, as educators and parents, teach our children? Because we still have this issue today. Right. How do we teach our children to not be manipulated by that? Because he picked you, he watched you for so long to get enough information to know how to get you to go with him. So how do we teach our children not to do that?
have them tell somebody. If I would have stopped, you know, I can't live in regret,
No.
but if I just would have went, okay, no matter what, I need to tell my sister. My sister would have said no, or would have gone with me in that circumstances. Even if I would have told the people in the store, someone would have said something, because it was like, if I go, hey, you know, cashier or whatever, this guy with security said he has books, they would have been like, whoa. So that was the thing. I think we need to, you know, teach kids to like let someone else know. That was the thing, is I was so convinced that if I got that good grade, I was going to get a bicycle. I fell short, and that's the thing, is like, I'm fortunate enough to be here. I'm here, but this is what happens. It's that manipulating a child, and as children, we're easily manipulated. So I honestly believe we have to have conversations, and not to the extent of the darkness that I went through, but have real conversation on what it might look like. And it's not puppies and candy. No. For me, it was pressures of a grade. And we live in a world right now where grades are so important, but I was manipulated about a grade, you know.
And you also, too, in transitioning, talking a little bit more about the movie, and I mentioned to you during the break, so I don't want to say it again, you so elegantly put down the storyline so that we could see the emotional the emotional turmoil that you were going through. But you also, too, raise questions that we need to address as a society, is that it doesn't matter when we bury things, we have to, there's triggers there. Right. And I love how you brought in that trigger, but with that trigger, it started a whole community that you were able to find because of that. And so let's talk about community and how that impacts an 8-year-old Gina M. Garcia to a 20-something-year-old, where the community really lifts you up and gets you to move forward.
Right. So let's start first with the trigger.
Yes.
My bicycle was stolen. In when the break-ins happened, it was a bicycle that was stolen. That stolen bicycle was my stolen childhood. Yes. That was my rosebud. Citizen Kane.
Yes.
And that was my rosebud. My rosebud was stolen. And so that's what put me right back. It put me right back into that moment of like the anxiety, the feeling. It put me right back into that car. And I thought I was truly losing my mind, because everything was in fragments. It was like, this doesn't make sense. And it was a sense of smell and taste, and it brought me right back into that moment. And I thought I was literally going crazy. Like, I was like, is this a dream I'm having, or is this my reality? And I dove into therapy at the VA, the amazing group of women veterans, and I felt like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz, because I did not fit, and they all had something that was broken. Yeah. They had, Gloria Allred's in my film, she's missing a limb, there's Dare Roll, and she has a frontal brain injury. Yes. There's the homeless person, and it's weird because the homeless person in my film had the most freedom of everybody. Yes. And so those were the elements, and then on top of it, Deborah Wilson plays a real survivor of the Oklahoma bombing, and who has issues with her sight, was buried under the rubble, and survived. And it's weird because I could look at it and go, she survived the Oklahoma bombing, was buried in rubble, and she saved my life by being able to say, hey kid, it's okay. You don't have to be okay. And I was so stuck in like the idea that physically I looked fine, but these people were like, you were a child, you are stuck, you are so stuck in your mindset, and you can't grow. And so this community of amazing women veterans.
Well, especially that one on the Oklahoma City bombing, her monologue to you at that beginning, that first meeting, is you can start to see the transition.
Right. I had gone to therapy for a long time. I walked into that group. I had to check my ego. My ego was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a veteran. I served the military. Nothing could be wrong. And they were like, no, wrong answer. And they put a mirror to my face. That's the thing, is all these people, my family, my brother is notorious for putting a mirror in my face and go, this is what's going on. And that's what they did for me. They challenged me. They challenged me to go in. They challenged me to get better. And I owe my life to these women. You know, they didn't have to deal with somebody that, like, my ego was so like out there. I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. And I think that's the thing. That's what I call the Oprah effect. Mm-hmm. I was succeeding in life, so there couldn't be anything wrong. And I was the most broken. Like, they're missing limbs, and I was the one that was most broken.
So, I mean, I feel like we need to do another episode just to talk a lot more about this, especially since you are currently working on a documentary. So definitely, I want you to come back. But before we leave our conversation, I want you to just tell me one major takeaway that you got out of digging deep in your past and bringing that story to the masses in Untold. What big takeaway that you get from that? And I mean, you got several, but
well, with making my film and all of it, I became my own Wonder Woman.
I love that. That is a perfect way to end our segment. But when your documentary's done, will you definitely come back so we can talk about that?
Absolutely. I love that.
Thank you for everything that you are doing as your personal mission to help others who experience trauma. But yes, you are definitely a Wonder Woman, and your movie is phenomenal. So you're welcome. I cannot wait to see the documentary. So thank you so much. And that's why I asked you on air, so that you have to come back. So I can't wait to see your documentary, have you come back and talk about that. And thank you for joining us on Everybody with Angela Williamson. Viewers like you make this show possible. Join us on social media to continue this conversation. Good night and stay well.